Hello everybody, welcome to today's session. Today we will be discussing India-Maldives ties, specifically in the context of recent strains that have developed between both the countries. To understand the recent strains that have developed basically between both the countries, we need to understand some context due to which basically the relations have become strained. Starting with, first of all, we need to understand the recent elections that were held in Maldives. Erstwhile President Ibrahim Mohammed Solih was defeated by Dr. Mohamed Muizzu, and we need to understand or why this becomes important for us is in the context of agenda or the campaign of Dr. Mohammed, that was India Out campaign, and specifically the developments that happened after the election of president. So what did Dr. Mohammed do was basically he chose Turkey as his first foreign visit, basically ignoring India. That is basically earlier what we say the recent president or the erstwhile president is to visit India by the Maldives president, but he ignored this president and instead chose to visit Turkey as his first official visit, again in the context of India-Maldives campaign. And second major point here is the next development, that was Maldives did not participate in a meeting of NSA level that is called as Colombo Security Enclave. Okay, that is basically obviously a security initiative. This is also important from your prelims perspective. So you need to look into what is the Colombo Security Conclave, specifically in the context of recent controversy in the Indian-Maldives relations, of which India, Sri Lanka, Mauritius and obviously Maldives is also a member. The recent developments need to be understood. First, the India Out campaign agenda of the president, then the election of the president, then basically after swearing in, he chose Turkey as his first official visit, then not attending the Colombo Security Enclave. Afterwards, another major development that we need to understand here is that is Maldives has decided not to renew the hydrographic cooperation agreement that expires in June. And last, the recent controversy with respect to Prime Minister's visit to Lakshadweep. Obviously, we know in this context the disgraceful comments that were passed by the ministers of the government, specifically in context of tourism, and basically these relations have further strained. And you must have also noticed the recent developments that ambassador of Maldives was even summoned to Ministry of External Affairs, and in Maldives also Indian ambassador was also summoned. So these developments become important, but to understand Indian-Maldives relations, we need to understand the historical development between both the relations. So let's come to that. So with respect to historical background, we need to understand basically how the cooperative relations between both the countries have developed over the years. If we talk about historical background, in 1965, Maldives gained independence from the Britishers, and India was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relations with the Maldives, and even Indian mission was set up in Male in 1972. Further, with respect to cooperative relations between both the countries, in 1978, President Abdul Gayoom took the charge in Maldives, and he specifically took the initiatives to further or strengthen the Indian-Maldives ties. The relations became so important that when President Gayoom was threatened with respect to coup that could have happened in Maldives, India sent its troops to save his presidency, and specifically the name of the operation was called as, that was Operation Cactus. Again, important from your prelims perspective, that could be asked that what was the specific operation that was launched with respect to Maldives. Then in 2008, Mohammad Nasheed was elected as a president, and again he basically focused on India first policy. And during his tenure, India began closer security cooperation initiatives with the Maldives. In fact, India loaned 2 helicopters, Dornier aircrafts, patrol bases to the Maldives, and these were used for maritime surveillance, coastal guard security ops. This highlights the closer security relations between both the countries. So what we have discussed so far is, if we took the timeline from 1965 to 2008, we can say that the relations were very much cooperative, and that is evident from the initiatives that have been taken so far. So what happens in 2013 is that Abdullah Yameen is elected as the president, and he basically begins a shift in the Maldives foreign policy. In fact of India first policy, he chooses China first policy, and this was evident when he signed FTA with China and also invited Chinese companies to invest in the infrastructure of the Maldives, specifically with respect to tourism or infrastructure development. And on the other hand, he threatened Indian pilots and personals from Maldives to be evicted. This was the first time when the relations became strained. Again, with respect to a shift in foreign policy, in 2018, Ibrahim Mohammed Solih was elected as the Prime Minister by defeating Yameen, and he again focused upon India first policy. Again, the relations became cooperative, the strain lessened to some extent, and this could be evident with respect to the investments that were done by India in many infrastructure projects, and notably the most important of all, that is the $500 million Greater Mail Connectivity project. That very important project for India as well as for Maldives. But what happens in 2021, just give me a second. What happens here is that India Maldives signed a specifically project, that is Yuthu Thila Falhu project, and this project basically starts what is called as India Out campaign. This project starts the agenda of all the opposition parties basically with respect to Maldives, and Dr. Mohammad Mizu is elected as the president of the Maldives. We have already discussed some of the major steps that were taken by him after swearing in as a president. He chose Turkey as his first official visit, rather cancelled hydro agreement with India, did not attend Colombo Security Enclave. Further, recently you have also seen with respect to newspapers that he went on a Chinese visit and basically asked for some infrastructure investments there. And again, there is a tilt with respect to from India first to China first policy. So these are some of the developments, but we need to understand that if we talk about Maldives, it is very much strategically located in the Indian Ocean, and it becomes very important for the India. Further, with respect to some sea lines of communication, basically trade perspective also, Maldives is very important for India. So we will look at the significance of Maldives from the Indian point of view. So you can see here that this is where Maldives is situated. This is the western coast of India, and here we have Africa, here we have Middle East, and this is Bay of Bengal, and further there is Southeast Asia. So this is a very strategic location. Specifically for if we talk about geo-economic, you can state that basically over 50% of India's external trade is done through sea lines of communication, and in these routes the situation of Maldives becomes very important. If the Chinese presence increases with respect to the Maldives, with respect to, or if China develops some sort of naval base with respect to Maldives, it could become a hindrance for India, as it could increase its surveillance activities with respect to India. Second, if we talk about geopolitical, both the countries are part of various cooperative agreements and some institutional agreements also. First of all, Colombo Security Conclave, basically we have already discussed this. Then Indian Ocean Rim Association, then there is SAARC, then there is SASEC, and there is also Sagar Initiative. Both the countries are part of this. So Maldives becomes very important for regional cooperation in South Asia. So from that perspective, we also need very good diplomatic and political relations with Maldives. And third is the perspective of security. See, it becomes India's first line of defense here with respect to terrorism, privacy, then drug trafficking, narcotics and other maritime crime. Further, if we talk about recent examples with respect to attack on the ships in the Indian Ocean. So here also the importance of Maldives cannot be undermined with respect to these activities, because India can rely upon the Maldives with respect to such activities. Further, if there are strained relations between both the countries, basically it could be used against India to further these activities. So this is a basically significance of Maldives for India from economic perspective, from political perspective, as well as from the security perspective. Further moving forward, what is the impact of recent strained relations between India and Maldives? What will happen with respect to these, or what can happen in the future? So number of predictions can be made, but certain predictions can be called as, first of all, the growing Chinese influence in the island nation. See, Maldives is already very much crucial for China's string of pearl policy. If we look here, just give me a second. If we look here, we already know that India has a dominance in Indian Ocean region, and China has been trying for decades to undermine this strategic dominance that is enjoyed by India by developing choke points here, and now it is using Maldives to develop basically, or to undermine the strategic advantage that is gained by India. Now, due to growing influence, what could happen is that China could enhance its reconnaissance activities against India. Further, it will reduce the diplomatic space that is enjoyed by India in the South Asian region. It could undermine its leadership with respect to South Asian region. Second most important is militarization of the Indian Ocean region. See, we have already discussed that it will diminish India's strategic advantage in the Indian Ocean if in the future China develops a naval base in Maldives region. Specifically with respect to significance, we have also tackled here, recall, security and from economic perspective. Okay, Maldives can be considered as India's first line of defense. Further, with respect to economic, 50% of external trade is through sea lines of communication. So they need to be secure, they need to be well maintained. So that could be another possibility. Third one is economic. How? See, Maldives is dependent upon its tourism industry, and Maldives tourism industry is heavily dependent upon India, and that is also seen in the recent boycott trends that you see with respect to India after the disgraceful comments that was passed upon India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So what Maldives will try to do here is basically, in immediate context, it can be stated that Maldives tourism industry will be heavily impacted. Rather, it will have to suffer huge losses. But in long run, what it can try to do is it can try to diversify its industry. Why? So as to reduce the dependence upon India. And last one is resentment due to strained relations. Basically, one of the major success that is enjoyed by India with respect to Maldives is closer basically or enhanced people to people ties, which further or strengthen the cultural ties that are enjoyed by both the countries. But if there is a resentment against India with respect to losses that are being faced by the Maldives tourism industry, then the people to people ties may be affected, which may further affect our cultural ties with the Maldives, and India could basically face diminished soft power in the island country. So this can be particularly asked with respect to your mains also, that what can be the impact of recent political strained relations between India and Maldives. You can write basically Chinese influence is there, militarization is there, economic impact is there, resentment is there. Further, they can also ask you basically that evaluate the historical background with respect to India-Maldives relation. So you can start with respect to that. We have already discussed that Maldives gained independence in 1965. India was one of the first countries. Then India launched Operation Cactus to save the presidency of President Gamin. Then with respect to basically how India launched Greater Mail Connectivity Project, that is there, and how there is now a India Out campaign that is there. Further, they can also ask you basically in context of recent controversy, highlight the significance with respect to India-Maldives relation. So you can also highlight three perspectives there, that is geopolitical is there, then economic perspective is there, then security perspective is there, and last one, impact, we have already discussed. Now, at last, what should be done to improve the relations? So to improve the relations, 3 to 4 things can be done. First of all, India should try to engage with the newly elected government. We can also call as backdoor diplomacy. That can be done. Okay. Further, India must convey that the projects being undertaken are not for the basically personal interests of India, rather they are for the general good of the people of Maldives first. Second, it must try to cultivate its soft power so that people to people ties are not affected. For that, basically we already have a scheme, and basically it should be further implemented. High impact community development program, it should be focused upon, so that any welfare measure or development measure that is taken by India, the community or the people of Maldives benefit from that. Second one. Third one is basically that is the timely completion of the project, such as greater mail connectivity project, that should be done. And last upon, basically most important, we should try to deepen the economic ties between both the countries. Enhanced economic ties will reduce the strain with respect to both the countries, so that can be done. So what we have discussed so far, we have discussed basically the recent controversy, why there is a controversy, the historical background, the significance of Maldives for India, the impact and what should be done in this context. So that is all from my side. Thank you very much.